Wow. When fall hits, there is truly not a better thing to eat than a good warm bowl of soup. Especially once it starts to cool down a little outside, there's nothing like coming in and holding that warm bowl. Oh, this is my dupe of Panera's broccoli cheddar soup and is probably my favorite soup. I'd like to give a very special thank you to Blue Land for sponsoring this episode. Have you ever noticed that little plastic film around your laundry detergent packs or your dishwasher pods that you throw in your dishwasher? Those plastics break down in the water and they contribute to all of the plastics and the microplastics contaminating our water supply and also our rivers and soil. If you haven't heard of them, Blue Land is a company that's making tablets for hand soap, dishwasher soap, laundry soap, and even toilet tablets without plastics. I'm always looking for ways that I can reduce the use of plastic and the microplastics in my food and in my home. I recently received the Blue Land hand soap and dishwasher soap combo, which is what you see me unpacking here, and the first thing I noticed is that Blue Land uses no single-use plastic in any component. From the bottles, the tablets, and the wrappers to your shipping packaging, even their tablet packaging for the tablets is fully compostable. Their products are effective and affordable. For instance, their hand soap refill packs, which come in a variety of scents, is only $2.25, and their dishwasher soap works on tough bake stains with no rinse aid needed. Blue Land is also sharing a special offer just for my viewers, 15% off. All you have to do is just click the link below and get 15% off of your first Blue Land kit. I'm gonna start me a pot of boiling water. I'll show you why later. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna start with is our onion. And I'm just gonna cut this thing here, cut it right down the middle. Trying that trick y'all told me in the comments, leave a wet towel, because I thought I was starting to tear up there. And then I'm just going to cut it down this way, almost to the end, probably about 3 times. And the same thing right here. I'm just gonna dice this. Trick's not working all the way, guys. I'll just be honest. Thinking sad thoughts over here. We'll use a whole onion, or about 3/4 cup of onion. Woo! The last time I tried that trick, it worked. This time it is not working. Guys, I've tried all the tricks in the book. This one didn't work. Hopefully these carrots won't be near as dramatic as that onion was. I'm just gonna go ahead and peel this thing here. Pop my ends off. Cutting these so they'll only be as long as my knife here. Then I cut them in half so that they'll lay flat and I don't cut my fingers. I think I'm about done crying from them onions now. And I'm just gonna kind of shave these thin. What I'm doing is making 2 stacks because they're round on both ends, and then I can just cut through the stacks. This is kind of my take on Panera Bread's broccoli cheddar soup. The great thing about soup is you can make a lot of it quick, it lasts for a while, and it's very easy to serve for a large group of people. And then the most special thing is when it's cold outside, there's nothing like something hot to eat. So just to show you what I'm doing with the carrots, the first thing I do is I'll just cut it in half this way. And I've cut it down so it's long enough for my knife here. And then I'll take one side or the other, set the other one out of the way, and I'll just go across it, cutting it thin as I can. And not cutting my fingers in the process. That's the big thing. By no means a knife professional, but then you'll notice that they're kind of rounded on both sides. So I made 2 stacks. And then I'll just take each stack and line them up the same way. Kind of run right through them. I actually enjoy cutting with a knife. I don't know what it is. I could run these through a grater, but it's fun for me. I enjoy it, and I enjoy practicing my knife work. I see these guys on YouTube just wearing their knives out, and even when Chef Tim Clowers came over, he was just wearing that knife out, and I know I'll never be at that level probably, but it's fun for me to get out here and try and see what I can do and test my limits here. But feel free to run these things through a grater. Feel free to buy the matchstick carrots that are already pretty much julienned. Lots of different options here. You don't have to cut up your carrots into little pieces and spend that time if you're in a hurry. Now this is not carrot soup. We're still gonna put a lot of carrots in it. So I'm just gonna take kind of the matchsticks I made and I'm just gonna chop these. So not super tiny, but you can see they're about, all the pieces, they're about little tiny chunks. Only a couple of them are gonna fit on your spoon is kind of the idea. See how close we are? The recipe calls for a little bit more, but this will be enough. Recipes are guidelines. Get as close as you can, or change what you don't like. Add, take away every time. It's always a little different in this house. So now we're gonna need a couple cloves of garlic. Let's pop this thing. I'm not gonna use a ton, just 2 for this. Not really wanting to overpower it. I could easily throw these in a garlic press, but since I'm already here with a knife, why not just chop them up and play with my knife a little bit more. Put our little baby garlics in our bowl here. Minced garlic, 2 cloves. If you were using the pre-minced garlic, it'd be about like a tablespoon of garlic, not a huge ton. And that recipe will be down in the description. I always put the recipes to everything I make down in the description. If you just scroll down, it makes it easy to find. So I'm gonna go blanch this broccoli, and that's gonna help it maintain its color, give it a good bright green color for the soup, and help it maintain its flavor. So I'm gonna take my lid off. I've got my boiling water. Use the lid to help it boil faster. And I'm gonna salt my water a little bit. To give us some flavor. Don't want to over salt it, it can make it mushy. And then basically we're just gonna drop these guys in here and let it boil for a little bit. So this is in here between 30 and 60 seconds, and you can see the color difference. I'm gonna take these back to the main camera and just show you the bright green of the blanched broccoli versus the more gray of the unblanched broccoli. So these just go in about 30 to 60 seconds, and you can see the difference in color. Kind of a gray green with the fresh one, and this bright green, which is really gonna contrast well with our soup. You can see it's still steaming. We're gonna get that straight down in the ice water. Honestly, the best way to blanch your broccoli is steaming it. That's gonna steam it about 6 minutes or 4 minutes, something like that. It'll maintain its flavor and maintain all the nutrients the best. Dropping them in boiling water does lose a little bit of those nutrients, but it's still gonna lock in a good bit of flavor and a good bit of color. So our broccoli's been blanched and our veggies are chopped, and now I'm going to cut up our broccoli. This is the final step of prep here, and I'm just gonna cut off the big ugly end, not the whole thing. This is still a very sweet part of the stalk. The first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna cut off all of the kind of florets there, and I just kind of trim straight around. Lots of different ways to do this, but the thing is we don't want to cut these so small that it's pureed, but at the same time we don't want to leave these so big that they more than fill up your spoon. I generally go to about something like that for the bigger ones, trying to hold that up close. So you can kind of see that's kind of for the bigger ones, and then the smaller ones will be something around this size right here. Just kind of, when that boils down, that'll fit in a spoon nicely. Get a couple little pieces of carrot. And so we're just gonna kind of chop them all like that. Okay, so it's time to grade the cheese. This is the last thing before we go to the stovetop. I have some sharp cheddar cheese, some extra sharp white cheddar cheese, and some mild or medium. I don't remember which one that was, but either one. It's just to tone it down a little bit because the sharp can be really sharp. So I'm gonna start with this. I'm gonna grade about half this block probably. This is a 16-ounce block, so we're grading about 8 ounces of it. Probably a little more than that actually. And I have a handy dandy bowl over here. So go ahead and dump that in it. This is broccoli cheddar soup. So the two things we're gonna have the most of out of these ingredients is broccoli, the big bowl, and cheddar, the other big bowl. Everything else is just to add flavor. On the first video I did, I had said butter makes everything better, and I didn't have a slogan for my cheese. And one of y'all commented, mo cheddar, mo better. And so that's what we're gonna say for this one. So I've got a big old thing of the sharp cheddar. That's what I'm gonna use the most of. I did use more than half of the block because Whitney likes a lot of cheese, so we'll have it if we need it. And we'll use a little as garnish after you put it in the bowl. That makes it look good. Oh yeah, that's a good bit. That actually is more than I thought I just did. I thought I had about half that much. I got a big old thing of it. Surely that's enough cheese. Now for the good part. This is actually new to me. This is an Emily Henry Dutch oven, and it's porcelain, extremely light. It is a little more fragile, but I was talking about cooking non-toxic, and they were letting me know that their porcelain is completely non-toxic, and it's much lighter than the enameled Dutch ovens or the plain cast iron Dutch ovens. There's no heat limits on it. It heats up as hot as you need it to, and you can use it for everything. So I'm gonna use it and try it with this soup. So I've got this thing on medium low, and I'm gonna start by adding half a stick of butter. Let that down in there. Actually, I think I normally just add half of the butter and then add the other half right before I make a roux, but it's been about 8 months since I've made this because this is pretty much just a fall and winter recipe for me. So we're just gonna really cook these till they start to turn clear and brown a little bit. Would have been a lot easier with less butter, but that's where we're at. I'm gonna go ahead and add my garlic in. And I'm also going to add my carrots. These are all kind of the hard to cook veggies. So I'm gonna cook these till they soften a little bit, till the onions are kind of translucent. You kind of got to pay attention to the soup while it's going right now because you don't want it sticking to the bottom and burning, even though it is. I will turn it up just a little bit to medium. You don't want to overheat it because we're not wanting to brown the butter. We're not wanting to, especially as much butter as I put in, we're not wanting to turn anything brown or glaze it. We're just wanting to soften it a little bit. I like to pull my salt just a little bit short of how much I need. And then I love my Man Kitchen pepper cannon. And one of the things I love, you'll see it's not coming out, is that it has this little sleeve on the bottom, which actually will catch all my grindings. And we'll stop a little short on the pepper too. Again, with the salt and pepper, I always like to stop a little short because I can add some more as we get further along the process. But if you over salt it, especially with a soup, you're never going to really fix that. You get, unless you make a huge more batch, adding a ton of milk, and it's just easier to stay a little bit short and add it in, I've found. So here's where I should be adding the rest of my butter. If you did this right, just go ahead and add the first half of a stick and do all of your veggies, and then we'll add the other half of a stick right now. We'll make a roux. So half a cup of butter equals half a cup of flour to make a proper roux. This works the same way if you're making gravy, if you're making, and I'm just going to whisk this. Actually, let me get a wire whisk because you really want to keep these broken up so they don't clump on you when you're making a roux. And that's pretty much the same whether you're using it for a soup base, for a gravy. You got turkey gravy for Thanksgiving, things like that. And I've got my broth already pre-measured, so if it starts to clump, I can add a little broth to it early to help it out. You can see it starting to form the roux here. And there's a half a cup of flour. And I just kind of dusted it over that. That way it would not get clumpy. And you got a pretty solid roux. Now I'm immediately going to chase that with broth. I'm going to pour this in really slowly because, again, I don't want to have dumplings in here. Let me get my, I'm trying to get it so I can show y'all too, but for some reason these glass Pyrex always pour down the bottom and out of the spout. And the thing with making the roux first is going to keep it way thicker. It's going to really thicken this base well. It's going to really thicken well into this base, and it's going to cook that flour really well, add a great flavor. And you can see that's just very smooth. That's what we're looking for, is just a very smooth base here. I love that. So solid, no clumps. Got my veggies completely opaque in there. You can't even really see the onions. Now we've got this. We're gonna bring this up. I'm just gonna bring this back up to medium. I turned it down to medium low to make the roux because I really don't want to burn that flour. Should have talked you through that. We're adding a lot of broccoli here. And this is gonna simmer for about another 5 to 7 minutes in here. It's broccoli cheddar soup. I might have added a little too much broccoli here, but we've got a lot more to go. So I'm just gonna put the lid on here just to let it bring up the heat. And I'm gonna pop that right back off because I want this to reduce a little bit. I can just hear it starting to bubble in there, which means it's there, so I'm gonna take this lid off. Also gonna reduce the heat a little bit. We're just simmering. I'm gonna stir it across the bottom here to keep anything from sticking. We're gonna set a timer. I'm gonna let it simmer for about another 7 minutes. This is really gonna let that broccoli soften. So before I move on from here, I wanna check this broccoli and make sure that it's just as tender as I want it because it's not gonna get, I'm gonna be adding cold ingredients to this, and it's not really gonna get any more tender than the point which I stop the simmer here. And as we progress to the next step, some things I want you to know. One, for the milk, you don't want the milk to sit and simmer too long or get to too high a heat, because it'll curdle and you'll get kind of the white dots. That's one thing that'll just ruin the look of your soup. It'll still taste fine most of the time, but it just won't look good. And we eat with our eyes, even though soup isn't the most appealing look. The next thing is with cheese. A lot of times, especially with pasta sauces, with soup bases, things like that, I will turn my heat all the way off before I add my cheese, because the more heat you have with the cheese, it'll separate and get a little sandy or grainy texture. So you want to make sure that all the cooking of the soup happens now. If you do see any really big chunks that are too big, I don't, these look great, but if you see any chunks that are too big, this is where you get them. If you want to blend your soup and you use an immersion blender, this is the point which you put your immersion blender in there, especially if you got bigger chunks, and kind of hit the spots you want to hit with your immersion blender. I don't do that, but this is the point to do all that at. This is the, like, that final part of making sure everything's ready before you finish this soup. And if you will notice, compare this to a lot of the homemade soups you've seen, this blanched broccoli is holding its color very well. I don't know how well the camera's showing color, but this is a very appealing bright green, and when we add that white soup base in, it doesn't look gray, it doesn't look brown, it doesn't look wilted. It's a very bright green broccoli, bright green color with the orange. It's really a pretty soup. Here we are with an amazing soup base, and it is time to add in the cheddar. Now all I'm going to do with this is I'm going to add in a good handful of the mild and extra sharp, add in a good handful of the sharp, and we're going to stir this in. I added a little too much, but okay. You can see that color starting to change as that cheddar thickens it up and adds its amazing flavor. Oh yes. I mean, there's a lot of cheese in this soup. It is a cheesy soup. That's the whole point of this. So we're gonna put a lot of cheese in it. And you can experiment with different flavors of cheese. Again, my heat, I just went ahead and turned my heat off. I gotta tell you, I turned the heat down to nothing. I don't need the heat. The soup is plenty hot enough to melt the cheese. So we're just gonna go with that for now. We've got a good bit of cheese in here. And if you look, that blanched broccoli held its color. Still good and bright green. Let's take this over for an official taste test. Just steaming. Go ahead and get a big bowl of this, and oh wow. And then, of course, we need to top it off with a little bit of cheese. Grate a little extra just for this. Just sprinkle it in there. Well, the moment we've all been waiting for. My favorite part of every single video is this part right here. Wow. Look at this, big old chunk of broccoli on there, a little bit of carrot. I mean, it gets no better. It truly gets no better than broccoli cheddar soup in the fall. I'm here for it. Make this dish. Your whole family is gonna thank me later.